Welcome back, mere mortalites. We are in the 8th of April 2023 and we got Meanderings running outdoors. We like to do Meanderings as a session for us to really just relax out in the park, philosophize, play with ideas, things that are of interest to us here at the Mere Mortals. We've got Juan on this side.
Kyrin here on the other side.
And I'm going to kick it off straight away for this meandering session. And it's truly a meandering piece. Have you ever heard of the Kimura Lock? The Kimura Lock?
It's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
the BJJ,
move of some sort.
Jiu-Jitsu, whatever it's called, move. Now, I don't particularly know if the origin was...
Here's how it works.
Well, I don't know if the particular origin is with a guy by the name of Masahiko Kimura.
Okay.
But it seems to be attributed to him as one that brought it on. Why do I bring up Masahiko Kimura? Because I stumbled upon a conversation with Jocko Willink in the latest podcast, one of the latest podcasts that he released, and it was a book on Masahiko Kimura. And I wouldn't generally bring up these sort of topics on just an individual. I don't like to talk about an individual, and I'm not, in essence, but I'm going to talk about stories, because I'm going to give you a little snippet of who this guy was, if you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Born in 1917, died in 1993. He was a Japanese judoka and professional wrestler, widely considered one of the greatest judoka of all time. He won the All Japan Judo Championship 3 times, from 1936 to 1950, and blah, 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 blah. Went through professional wrestling, helped bring a lot of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, fought the Gracies over in Brazil. It was a big thing. I'm sure if you're into mixed martial arts, it's a very key historical piece, right? I'm not ridiculous into mixed martial arts. You're much less into it, and so it's acceptable that we don't know who this individual is. However, if you read his book, or if you go and looking into more stories about this dude, the amount of either insanity or bullshit that is spouted about this guy is out of control.
Yeah, right.
Here's some examples. Again, is this true? I don't know. I can't verify this. It was what came from his book. There was things like he would do 600, I believe it is, 600 reps of 80 kilo bench in an hour. That would be one of his workouts, and he would work out basically every single day.
It's about 10 a minute.
He would, 10 a minute, roughly. He would also, some of the other qualities that he called out, he knew that at the time, when this was back in 1930s, 40s, 50s, when he was winning all these tournaments, he knew that people would train 3 to 4 hours, and so his call out was, he slept 2 hours every day, he trained 11 hours every single day. And the more and more you look into this particular individual, the stories, each one, every single one, you go, okay, this is already remarkable in their own right, but when pulled together, it's like, okay, this cannot have happened. This cannot have been an individual that existed, or else this wasn't a human. This is like part bionic thing. And I go, okay, this is just ridiculous. Funny, almost like fictional reading. Like, honestly, it would be almost like fictional reading. However, there's a lot of truth embedded in there. He was a ridiculously good judo master. He was, he got to like 8th dan black belt, and he couldn't go up further because he didn't return a flag that he won back in the 1950s or something like that, so he couldn't go up. But he fought with,
it's a thing.
like,
There's
he fought
always
with concussions and completely passed out, and his arm he broke someone's arm and just kept on breaking it. So there's all these storytelling. Again, how much is truth if you're a fan of his, and how much is lies, I don't know. My main call up was, how would you react if an individual, real world, was kind of articulating a story to you, having a conversation with you, and all of a sudden just pulled not just one vector but multiple words. Okay, this is beyond statistical like probability. You're straight talking just shit. Would you confront them? Would you just let them go with it? What were your reactions to this? Because for me, after I listened to that podcast, I just went, that was a funny episode to listen to.
Yeah.
That was funny. I'm going to bring it up here because it just seems so ridiculous. But I wouldn't believe that this is not a path to follow. You're not going to follow the path of sleep 2 hours for 30 years and train 11 hours a day. No, that's not. I'm not condoning that as a mere mortal approved way of training. But what would your reaction be to an individual coming up to you like that?
So I've had people similar to this, and you're correct. If it's a one-off thing that's remarkable, sure, I'll take them at face value. When it's multiple and it's across different avenues, I could imagine someone being able to do 600 reps of 80 kilo bench press in an hour. 10 a minute, that's 1 rep every 6 seconds. That's pretty damn quick.
I couldn't do it. I'm telling you, I couldn't do it. I could not do that.
But I could imagine someone training for 5 years and being able to get that, sure. But then if it's, 7 or stories like that, and they're 35, you go, oh, okay, you know, how have you managed the time to do all of these consecutive things? Usually for me, it's more of a questioning thing. I'll maybe add a question. I usually don't call them out on bullshit straight up if I think it is. That's just not my style. I'd probably ask a question or two, but I'd be content to just put them in the category of, okay, this person over here. And then the other thing you added is there's always an excuse why they didn't get this. Oh, I could have got more than 8th grade, but, you know, I didn't return this flag or this one thing. And it's like, no, okay, well, why didn't you return the flag? You know, why is there always seems to be like an additional excuse of when you're asking, okay, well, do you have photographic evidence? Did you have a video of this? Do you have other people who can corroborate what you're saying? There's always a fucking excuse. There's always an excuse.
And this one, I just wanted to pull it up.
But yeah, for this guy, I mean, I literally know nothing about him, so this is more the general.
Yeah, and this is just a little story that I really enjoyed. It got told in the podcast, but I thought I'd retell here. There was a story of Kimura defending himself against 4 harassing American soldiers. And bear with me here. So it's the men did this to everyone on the line, one by one, including women. When someone did not stoop down, they delivered another strike. My turn was approaching. While I was wondering about what to do, my turn came. One of the men extended his arm trying to grab my lapel. I struck his hand with full force. The facial expression changed suddenly. The 4 men surrounded me and took me to the middle of Nagaroku Bridge, nearby the station. This was not an ordinary fight to me. I had to win this fight to defend the honor of judo. One of them suddenly threw a straight at my face. I blocked the punch with my left arm, kicked him in the groin with full force. He crumbled on the spot. When I turned back my head, another huge MP extended his arm and attacked me, trying to grab me from behind. I then hit his right arm hard with knife hand and then threw him into the river by Sayo Nage, however you pronounce that. The other 2 were watching the scene in amazement. They charged at me one by one. I delivered a headbutt into the face of the 3rd man. He was knocked out. I disposed of the last man by squeezing his balls with full force.
Nice.
Ever since I was in junior high, I've been called Master Groin Squeezer and had absolute confidence in this technique.
What the fuck?
So this was like story after story after story, and I was like, this seems like a great like fictional story. If this happened, if this dude existed and participated in life like this, I'm in amazement and awe, and I can't believe that I haven't already heard of this individual, because there must be like legendary scrolls out there of this guy. But
yeah.
I just went, wow. So mere mortalites out there, if you have stories like that, you're obviously not a mere mortal. But if you're listening somehow, I would love to hear a story like that of like multiple things that you believe is true, for a good laugh. I think just even for entertainment. It was go get that book for entertainment purposes. It just seemed like it'd be right up the alley of entertainment.
Good for a laugh. I always love when they are adding what the expressions of the other people were. No, in this fight, and you have time to recognize just how amazed they were by you. You know, that you see this across other people when they're talking about their intellect or something. You know, they were amazed by his intellect. I'm just trying to think of the book that this came up with recently. But yeah, it's that sort of thing. It's like,
this would be the equivalent of someone telling me, and again, could happen if you're like incredible master, but it would be the equivalent of me saying, all right, Kyrin, sprint to the car and back, and like you would tell me, oh, as I ran past just that restaurant there, a little girl smiled at me, her left tooth was like rotten, but she was still eating a lolly. It's like, no, okay, you're not capturing that in a full sprint.
Yeah, of course. I'm trying to just think. I guess it's kind of similar to the book I'm reading, well, just finished, which was Confederacy of Dunces, where this guy is just living in this bizarre parallel world where, you know, I don't think he thinks other people recognize his greatness. So he's not talking about how amazed they are by him, but there are these just like little aspects here and there where you're like, what the fuck,
seems a bit off.
Yeah. Okay. It's bugging me. I was having this exact same thought recently, though. You know, of people just talking this bullshit about how other people were amazed by them, and it's like, it's so gross. Yeah. So gross. Well, man, I finally found someone with my name. I've had a couple of close calls recently. I met a Kyrin the other day.
Ooh, okay.
But I was...
Not spelled the same way?
Him? No. And he was actually... had Indian heritage, so I don't even know.
Wow, okay.
I don't even want to imagine how
Irish?
they did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
And in any case, so I've had a couple of close calls recently, but I was doing something podcasting related on the internet. I think I had to type in, I know what it was. I was trying to find one of our podcasts, and instead of writing Mere Mortals, I just wrote Kyrin, because that's a shorter way of getting it. And I finally found someone.
You found a
finally
second Kyrin,
happened. So, Dr. Kyrin Dunston, literally Dr. Kyrin D.
Dr.
Kyrin
D.
So she's a good-looking African lady.
She's female.
from Atlanta. Yeah,
What?
yeah. The host of the Hormone Prescription Podcast.
There you go.
So if you're ever interested in
Dr.
finding out-
Kyrin D.
I don't know,
Would
man.
you have believed that it would have been a girl?
I could have.
Okay.
I could have. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so, but
Wow.
40% chance.
Maybe. I feel like it's such a rare occurrence to find another Kyrin.
I've never.
It might be worth getting him for a podcast chat.
Kyrin's, yeah, just for that.
Just for
Kyrin
that
D.
pure conversation. Like, let's talk about...
Let's talk about your name and then hormones.
Yeah. We'll just be like, hey, like, how often do people mispronounce it? Is it mispronounced the same way?
Yeah.
Do you use D?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they said it. I think I listened to an episode just to make sure that it's not like Kyrin. And then I'll be like, well, that doesn't even count.
It's not Kyrin, but it was actually Kyrin. Like,
Yeah,
it was like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Damn, with my name, it
Juan
doesn't get
Granados.
mispronounced anymore. Although I do get the...
Well, I was talking with Alex Watanabe about how I never pronounced your name right in high school. It was always like Juan.
Oh,
Juan.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
even in our joking way of saying your name, we
It
never
would still
once
be,
said
it would still be
Juan.
like the full name. No. And even there's some people, again, still some people like where I work or through other means that still use like
John.
slightly different. No, not John, but still use like slightly different pronunciations to it. Again, I kind of have stopped caring about how others might say it. However, what I have almost flipped on is when someone is asking me to say my name, I will say it in its full pronunciation. So, for instance, at my work, for reasons, it has to use a full name. And so whenever they ask, I almost take pleasure in saying my full name in full pronunciation of Juan Pablo Granados Ormaza. And then it's like, oh, hold on, can you say that again? I'll be like Juan Pablo Granados Ormaza. No,
You say it again, and
can you say it
it's
again?
not
Like, how
helpful.
can you pronounce it?
I know how bullshit you like to do this.
I've become very good with the, was it the phonetic? Not phonetic language, when you have to say like B for Bravo, T for Tango, C for Charlie, A for Alpha. I've become very good at that, purely because I've had to like spell out my name or the user ID multiple times, and so I've seen my name be utilized that way. But so I won't hurt you folks. I won't be ashamed. I won't be sad if any mere mortal light out there goes, Juan. It's Juan, if you want to pronounce it. However, I will pronounce my name in its correct format, Englishized version. Yes, that's how it will be done.
This could be memory that never actually happened, but my dad does this a lot, saying the N for Nigeria or whatever. And I'm pretty sure I heard him say once M for monkey over the phone, and they're like, oh yeah, N for nunchuck or something.
Just completely different. Just completely destroyed the fact that you said like monkey, like
yeah.
Nah, dude.
Lols.
The only other point that I had here, but this might go a little bit further, was I don't know if you've listened to fully the conversation with Sam Altman and Lex Fridman.
I have. I was a bit bored, to be honest.
A bit bored? Okay. I also found myself skipping through a lot of it.
It was a bit too high level for me. I'm not that into AI.
I was listening to it at a 1.2 and then ended up going like to 1.75 or 2, depending on what sort of type they were doing. Again, there were some aspects where they were talking about things and I was like, oh, I will understand. I'll hear it, but I'm not absorbing a ton of things. And I'll go back to much more lower level of speed when it was like, okay, I want to absorb a lot of this that they're talking about.
The Podfather's not happy with that.
The Podfather's not happy with that?
Podspeeding.
Why?
Is what he calls it.
I know he does, but why?
Damaging to the brain. It creates an impatience in you listening in everyday life. He had a special disorder for it.
Yeah, I hear that, and I wouldn't disagree that it would act out on people. I've just never seen that personally myself. I've also listened to podcasts at 1 time speed, even like slower, even 0.8 speed. Sometimes when I really want to understand what's going on, or I want to, it's almost like articulating equations, or they're explaining through a process or a method that I'm like, okay, I want to listen to this once as opposed to listening to it 50 times on 1.5 times speed. But I've also heard equivalently, there's probably other methods, like if you listen to something at faster speed, you could be absorbing much more over a longer period of time. Even if you're only uptaking 70%, if you're listening at 1.5, it's probably better overall that you're forcing more in. I can see both ways.
My thoughts on this are the same as speed reading. I think you're going to lose information and you'll detracting from the actual experience, and I think altering your brain a little
Well,
bit.
and my experience with podcasts, and this is potentially what that is made for, I guess, for me. I don't listen to podcasts predominantly for the fun of it. I predominantly listen to podcasts for the learning aspect of it. And so if you had to tell me, oh, if I can listen to something at 1.5 times the speed and absorb 80% of it, but listen to 1 times the speed and absorb 90% of it, I'm going to listen to it at 1.5 times.
Do you have any where you look forward to the next release of it? You're waiting for the next episode?
Only Cock Punch one, which is a fictional one, and I do listen to that at 1 time speed. I don't listen to that at maximum speed, and that is a pure enjoyment. So when it's an enjoyable thing, yeah, 1 time's fine. This weirdly is, although you wouldn't think it, I do that with Jocko podcasts as well, because sometimes it's just funny. Like, I really find the conversation between Echo and Jocko to be quite hilarious. That I listen to at 1.2, which is slow for me, and it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable listen, and they're like, I wouldn't mind even if I had to listen to it at 1 time speed. But there are some conversations where even it's supposed to be enjoyable. I'm thinking Joe Rogan ones or more learning ones.
Comedy ones.
Tom Bilyeu. I don't really listen to comedy podcasts, although it might be a comedic conversation between Joe and a comedian. That I'll still listen to at a 1.5 times speed. Still find it funny. I won't need or find the requirement for it to be slower, though. Doesn't detract from the enjoyment.
Yeah.
But I can see people, to Adam's point, I can see that if you listen to it at 5 speed, you then expect people to talk really, really fast. I think maybe I'm also naturally a fast speaker. That's just me naturally. I'll just do that.
Yeah, you're so used to bloody Colombian Spanish.
Yeah, so that's a big possibility.
quick.
I've also spoken really fast for a lot of my life, and I don't know if it's altered the way that I've actually done it myself personally. So yeah, not totally sure.
I'm a normal speed listener, apart from very select episodes where Generation Bitcoin, for example, where he speaks naturally slower, so I just kind of bump it up.
I will just pause because the security guy's going to cut us off. And we're back.
For a third time.
So we're just dealing with security here in our lovely Brisbane Parklands. Again, doing the job correctly. And thancfully, we actually sorted out a few years ago the ability for us to podcast.
2021. I was just looking at the date.
Yeah, the ability to actually podcast outside, which is really cool. I'm glad we got that sorted out way back then.
I mean, we can podcast outside. Podcasting in privately owned land
which we are able to do. In fact, there's only one other group who can do that now that we found out this information. So there you go. There's only two groups who can actually do it. He actually just said there's only 2 groups who are allowed to do it here in the Parklands. So there you go. One of them. Mere mortals represent. Just finishing off my piece there with the Sam Altman, Lex Fridman conversation.
Yes.
And this was around AI. Yeah, look, the topic was interesting, sort of. There was pockets of good stuff, some pockets not as great. But the question I had for you was, what's the end play? What's the end outcome of AI? There's been a frothy amount of information coming out. ChatGPT, GPT-4, new things. Every day I see at least 3 Twitter posts being like, in the last 24 hours, the world has changed because of this, and you have to look at this. Now, some of it is obviously, trying to catch it to go and follow through and clickbaity. But things are changing. Things are dramatically improving. I won't say the full details of this, but I'll tell you offline. I've seen personally, firsthand, the use of ChatGPT in work/contractual interactions to best out other people. So, I'm starting to see that very much play out. And even the investment of people paying the extra $20 a month for the ChatGPT Plus going a long way. So, where do you sit? Where's the end state, end outcome, do you feel?
We live in a physical world, so no matter what, physical reality is the predominant force. So no matter how good this stuff is, there is still going to be an extreme need for people who can do physical work that robots cannot do. So intricate detailing of, getting into tight spaces, being able to use logical thinking of, okay, this carburetor's not working, but I can fix it by janking up this old thing, that sort of stuff. So the mechanics of this world, you're in luck. Your job's not at risk. I wonder how many jobs are just people talking back and forth, and that can just be replaced with AIs talking back and forth. That seems to be what a lot of it is. How much of it is, how much of my life can this really affect in terms of time saving and things like that? Sure, there's a lot of things I Google, and it would be nice to have that information really quick. But I was thinking about this the other day, talking about Lex Fridman. So he had Sam Harris on, and Sam Harris was talking about Twitter, and you know, he thought it was great because he was getting all this useful information, this high quality signal. Bitcoin people love to talk about the fucking signal, man. That's high quality signal. And he ended up going, okay, it just wasn't worth it for him. Twitter, he was focused, sure, there was things that were interesting and he was focusing upon them, but in the grand scheme of things, they were short duration, non-useful for longevity of life and stuff, or you know, the things that he really cares about in his life, stuff wasn't there. So I kind of see a lot of what AI can do is that. It's a lot more short-term focused. This will help you find this hack, or you'll be able to do this thing even quicker than before, or better, or something like that. I don't know. Long-term, I don't know.
Yeah, I probably sit on the fence on the other side, on the hearing of the Elon Musks and a few others who are going, hey, we'll probably need to put a little bit of restriction here, try to put some limitation. Now, I'm not saying that we should put limitation, but I'm sitting on I could see the end state of this very quickly slipping by the fingers of how fast we can keep up with it. On the form of when they were performing like chess, they were trying to become the best chess player with a robot, and I believe it was Deep Blue, right? And they finally beat Kasparov, and they beat the best human there was, a chess player. Awesome. And that took a long time, took quite a bit of years to perfect it and get it to that model. But then they went ahead and got essentially a computer to be trained up by the computer, and in a matter of days, it all of a sudden was even better, and now it's well beyond the realms of human conception to beat that. Same thing has been done with AlphaGo, where it was AlphaGo 1 and then AlphaGo 0. And I kind of get this feeling that now ChatGPT is a large natural language processing piece, not so much a AGI type of artificial intelligence. But where the line or where the boundary crosses into, oh, this is now AGI, or this is for, apart from very specific tasks, it's basically AGI in what it's doing or articulating. I don't think we're going to have much of a view of the line when that happens. It's just going to happen. And all of a sudden we'll retract back and be like, oh yeah, that felt like it happened there. But as it speeds up, I feel like the speeding up of it won't speed up. It won't slow down. It's just going to go faster and faster and faster to the point that you, me, and everyone else can't really be keeping up with everything else of the new things that are coming out. And the things that are going to be keeping up are going to be other AIs, other bot-driven connections, let's just say, or conversations, to the point that they might not take over completely. I'm not saying completely take over, but completely takes over particular streams of information, of jobs, where it'll just like shun people out. Almost to the dialogues of, I'm imagining big corporations of, hey, we used to have call centers, hey, we used to have these lines of workers. There's not even a conversation anymore like, oh, we should have a human there. It's like, no, that's now just a run by AI whole segment area of my company. Don't even talk about humans there anymore. It's almost like black box. Now, what I'm not going to even express if there's more crazy things like they'll take over the entire system, or they'll connect with Bitcoin all of a sudden and be like, well, why don't we need humans anymore, or something to that effect. But I sit on this fence of, I could see it going just too quick for human hands. That to me feels like the end state outcome of AI, of the quicker it goes, the less we have the capacity to almost hold it back in where it's going to become.
Yeah. Here's a couple of scenarios. One, I mean, if an AI did exist right now and it was going to cause existential threat to us, what do you imagine it would be? The only two things I can think of are nukes. Please, people in charge, keep the AI away from nukes. I think that's just a generally good concept to have some air gaps, things like that. The other one would be of distorting the electricity grid or energy grid or supply chains and things like that, which would sure cause a lot of harm to humanity. Would it cause mass extinction? No, probably not. But
I almost go even simpler. I think it's just going to be stupidity by a human. Like, it's going to be human stupidity that forces some of this new AI to just go haywire. I'm imagining something built not as secure as it should be in handling something that's quite risky.
Like it's an AI that's just really good at creating viruses or something.
It's something like that, but like it's the
computers.
intent. It's the use of intent. I think can be a very good thing, but a very dangerous thing. So if you're participating, let's just say with viruses, let's just go nukes or something like that. But people are like, ChatGPT and other AIs like this are helping solve virus problems or doing new calculations with this and whatnot. What if, again, fast forward and they have the interactions and the API connections and all these system machinery where you can go, hey, you write your intent. Try and, combine this chemical with that chemical to see what it'll become. And rather than doing it in a digital format, it'll have to go and do it, let's say, in a lab. But what if someone, as a human stupidity, you just articulate like, can you try and combine this and this to make it deadly? Now, rather, you wanted to say not deadly, right? Let's just say little slip of the fingers, and all of a sudden it just runs this program.
His
does it.
example in the podcast
Deadly thing
was if with $1, how could I cause the most damage, or how could I kill the most people, or something like that. So obviously, giving access for one deranged individual to cause a maximum harm, and if it could assist in that, sure, that's a pretty big problem.
Yeah, and they have the lockdown versions of it, so it is censored in a way, ChatGPT, for example. But as Sam Altman was talking about, there's some that are going to be coming out from the woodworks, which are not going to be censored. They're going to just allow absolutely everything to just flow wild with it. Again, either human stupidity or human evilness, either way you want to look at it, could definitely turn into a point where it's like, you could be using that and then going to some catastrophic events.
Yeah. So I'm not too worried about that.
It doesn't keep you up at night.
No.
It doesn't keep you up at night. I go, it's not for the Met now still, but I can see it causing something that will be of a problem to humanity in general in the years to come.
Yeah, potentially. I suppose another way could kind of be, what's his name? Adam Curry. He talks about one of the reasons TikTok's so great is it kind of sections off people into their own little bubbles. You get if you're interested in girls dancing, if you're interested in mechanics doing stuff, TikTok will put you in this category and only show you stuff, and you're not going to get stuff from outside. That's kind of one of the things that they're good at. Once again, I could kind of see, the battle of the AIs. We have our individual AIs. My one is suited for me, knows what kind of tastes I like. When I ask a subjective question, it'll bring up subjective opinions that it knows that I'll enjoy, or that sort of thing. I don't know. Yeah, this is probably one of those topics where I don't know is the best way to describe my knowledge of it. I'm excited though. I'm excited and in generally just optimistic.
Yeah, I'm interested and I'm not optimistic. I'm neutral.
Okay.
I'm interested and neutral. I'm not super pessimist. I'm not overtly optimistic. Like everything's going to be rosy. I go, nah, not really. But I'll have a neutral view toward it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the only times I kind of see technology really turning out bad and harming a lot of humans is when it's designed with a destructive intent. The atom bomb, guns. The gun wasn't invented to solve, picking locks or something like that. Yeah. That wasn't the primary case.
There's risks behind them.
I want to kill another human and do it in a cheap manner. So I don't particularly see it being designed as we're building this AI to mess up China or to whatever. It seems to be more for creative pursuits, for knowledge and learning and understanding. So, but I mean, what are you going to do? Be depressed about it?
True,
not doing anything about it? Like,
no, that's also no will to live.
Yeah.
Anything else on your plate?
Yeah, sure. So podcasting, a couple of things. One, I'm spending more time with kind of domain experts. So Lex Fridman is kind of like this with AI, I guess, but probably 80% of the people that he has on are not. It's psychologists, philosophers, jiu-jitsu people. Maybe he'll get, what's his name on, or would have gotten him on back in the day.
Who?
The
yes.
jiu-jitsu guy, can't remember his name. Kimura. What I'm finding nowadays is my kind of selections, my tastes are getting more refined into those domain experts. So a lot of what I listen to now, probably 80-90% is Andreas Antonopoulos, Chris Fisher from Jupiter Broadcasting, who is very kind of expert in Linux and self-hosting and that sort of technology space. Podcasting 2.0, James Quinlan, Handstand Factory. They're all these really, really super niche ones. What would you say your podcast listening is nowadays? Are you in discovery mode, trying to find people? Are you what?
Yeah, as much as possible, no longer in discovery mode. Even if an individual comes on, like Matt Walker on Andrew Huberman's podcast or on Tim Ferriss' podcast and talks about sleep, I know he's got a podcast, but I'm not going to go out of my way now to add any more podcasts themselves for listening. The ones I've got now, I feel like are curated enough for the breadth of information I want to kind of get. Again, this is the Tim Ferriss. There's reasons behind that. Andrew Huberman, there's humongous reasons behind that particular podcast. Same thing goes with Peter Attia's podcast. So again, health related from a just general principles that like Jocko's one, really enjoy. And I think that the focus on the curation of some of those is it hits a real big breadth of individuals. Again, Joe Rogan's one, big breadth, but there's enough broad connections with a lot of side guys there that I don't have to go and find another niche one, because I'm not across the board a person that is niche about a particular thing. I never go supremely hard at a thing for a really long extended period of time. That's not me. I could go really hard at a thing for a short period of time, but not an extended period of time. So I couldn't see myself ever listening to a podcast like the Handstand Factory for years on end. I wouldn't find that as entertaining, even for things that I really, really, really enjoy, fitness and health. I wouldn't listen to a podcast week in, week out, month in, month out about sleep. I just wouldn't. I want some variety. And so a lot of the ones that I do listen to now, I feel like are the top of the league for the sectors that I care about and are broad enough that they're going to keep me interested without having to, go and split out and find something else new. So for me, it's not like I'm going to be, unless something dramatic comes new into my feed that I go, wow, that's a new piece. I'm not in a discovery mode to find new ones.
Dad podcast maybe or something.
Look, I've tried to find a few, not podcasts per se, but YouTube channels to try to listen to a few things. It's good. Again, I almost find like the dad podcast stuff, like the tips and tricks. Honestly, from the podcast that I already listen to, maybe I've heard it talked about or been discussed to a certain part. Maybe I would say probably 20 times in these various podcasts that are not about that at all, but it's just come upon the conversation with a different person. And so I go, look, I'm getting even enough of that. So there's enough range in them. So
I'm listening to more dad podcasts than you. One of my favorites is becoming Bitcoin Dad.
Bitcoin Dad, okay.
Yeah, that's one of Chris Fisher's. Okay. It's nothing about dads. It's just about Bitcoin. But it's a
good podcast.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's really good one.
I think you've definitely been leveraging the podcast availability through the new podcast apps out there, and they're going to be predominantly Bitcoin. They're going to be predominantly podcasting. There's going to be more folks in technology. I haven't seen the need just yet or wanting to go any deeper than I currently have in some of those regards. There is a wanting for me to know some of crypto happenings and details to a deeper layer, but it's not at a rapid pace. I think I've established now a path where I'm happy to absorb it as it goes through all these general podcasts that I'm listening to, and recognize where I'm not going down the deep path of say an Antonopoulos or anything like that. That's okay. I'm comfortable to absorb probably where that information will come out in 2, 5, 10 years as time goes on.
Yeah, oh geez. There's 3 different things I want to bring up, which all are kind of in my notes. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to order them. So the first one would probably be, you can tell from mine, similar to you, I don't have a one thing. So you can, at that list, it's Bitcoin, it's technology, it's handstanding, it's podcasting. That's kind of the general 4 or 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 if I dive into some of the other stuff I listen to. So, some people will only listen to Podcasting 2.0, Pod News Weekly, Ariel Nissenblatt's Audacity to Podcast, you know, they stick in just that one super focused niche genre. Similar to you, I won't do that, but I can imagine myself listening to some of these shows until they stop, sort of deal. So that's kind of like a difference with us, but I suppose very similar in that neither of us is niche like that. With the podcasting, I am probably more focused on the latest and greatest in that, because I would almost say my life path is more uncertain than yours in that I'm starting to find, I think, what I want to do kind of the rest of my life, which is podcasting and doing it through the value for value model. I look at someone like Chris Fisher and I go, you know, that's the kind of lifestyle I want to have. His, you know, multiple podcasts, various income sources from that, kind of decentralized in a way, but also not dependent on like one big, you know, daddy Rio Tinto, what it used to be for me, that salary sort of life. I think that's kind of what I'm aiming towards, and what I'm to do that, I need to be kind of at the forefront of this new stuff, and I see some big opportunities with value for value, and I haven't fully formed my ideas on that, but I think I'll be spending a lot more time on the Value for Value podcast in the future, I imagine. So that's just one thing. And then the last one was, you know, with all that being said of not having my life path, how do you find out what other people think of you? We were talking about this before I came. Obviously, this is on my mind a lot because I'm dating and trying to, you know, find a partner. How do you go about getting like good quality info of, you know, the reason that girl didn't respond to you was for this, and was it a overall grand scale thing that I'm doing wrong, or just a personal preference on her part which I would never be able to fulfill? For example, if you meet a girl and she doesn't text back, did that ever happen to you per se? Like, would that be a common occurrence for you, or is this just a fucking Kyrin thing? Like, what?
I think it's weird. I don't know how there's multiple prongs I'm going to answer this, but I'll establish this at the forefront with saying that I come from a position of like, and it is a now position, I don't know if this was always a position, but of
I never got the feeling you struggled.
Like, realistically, I don't give a shit about that particular question. As in, the question of, hey, what do you think that this person thought about that?
It was, just an example.
Wouldn't matter. But how that happened? For sure, definitely. In the moment, I don't think that I inquired nor cared as to what the reason. And even if maybe I'm just thinking it through, I guess my answer would have been, either it just wasn't a match, wasn't interested, whatever. That's it. Move on.
See, I can come up with a bunch of reasons of why. My brain doesn't automatically gravitate towards them. And then it's also, you know, it is something I'm trying to get better at. I sucked at dating once and I got better at it. It'd be better. I don't want to get good at dating. I want to get
No, you don't want to get good at dating.
a
But I think what I think you have to get better at, and I think this is where I'm ultimately getting to, is that what you have to get better at is knowing very truthfully, very rawfully, is that a word? I don't know. But very transparently, what you are good and what you are doing and who you're attracting in a variety of ways. In that there are very deluded people out there, and I don't think you're deluded in this sense, but you can get into the problematic space of being deluded or not seeing the truth for what it is, aka, and I'm not going to put you're in the scenario, but I'm going to say a 40-year-old. There is reality that a 40-year-old trying to go out with a 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-old is going to find it more difficult than probably a 27-year-old. Right? I'm not going to say another 20, I'll say 27-year-old.
Well, even with a 40-year-old to a 27-year-old,
sure.
would
and
be
there are
difficult.
Realities to how the socio-economic, social structures work, that there are certain expectations that if you're going to date into this band, that person better be rich or have this or be set up or whatever. They don't want a quirky fellow that's 40 years old. That's not what they want. And I think there's the making sure one is not deluded about that, but then being realistic on. I don't know how you would play through this. You've asked me how to realize, like, okay, well, you know, I've done this before. How come it's maybe not particularly working the same way? really inspecting and being real with, hey, what worked for me at 23 might not actually work for me now at 31.
So in particular, it would be me now at 31. Yeah, 31. The last time I was in the kind of dating scene was 2018. So 5 or 6 years ago. So this is me now at 25, 26, something like that. So the difference, that would be the difference now.
Yeah. And look, my interpretation of this would be also asking the real question, and how would you? You just have to ask the question of people or in the dating pool as well. Either people out, either
That's
friends.
the hard thing, man. Getting valid feedback is just...
Yeah, and look,
so,
and maybe it might be
hard.
A case that, you know, you find of interest that you're approaching that you do week in, week out. Maybe you focus in 1 week where, hey, you might check in with people and actually ask this particular question to try to inquire. Hey, we'll ask it for people who are listening to us in the Mere Mortalites. Let us know if you're, you know, currently in the dating scene. Has it changed enough since pre-COVID that maybe it is a bit of a change up where it's now not just like 40-50% on the apps, it's much higher than that, right?
So many variables. Is it the dating culture has changed? Have I changed? Is it a combination of the two? Have the girls changed? Have there's so many variables.
But to your question again, I think it has to start with being really radically honest, transparent, raw with yourself on the answer that might be the truth might not be the one that you want, and so you're shying away from that being the conclusion. Again, did I ever want to, as a human who really enjoys fitness, ever really want to concede that I'm not going to be the best at a CrossFitter or a powerlifter or the bodybuilder or whatever, is that whatever fitness regime? Hell no, I didn't want to accept that for ages because I'm like, nah, listen Goggins, listen to Jocko, you can be fucking best in the world. No, I can't. Like, this is the answer, folks. I'm not ever going to be that. I can push, again. I like the terminology of being the top level mere mortalite in the mere mortal band, but I'm not going to go beyond that. And I truly understand that. And that was a hard conclusion to get to for me. Very hard.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Equally, it's a conclusion that you might have to get to. This, and again, you know, you're doing this, you're testing out the waters, but you're going to have to get to a conclusion at one point in time. And whether you ask the question of people, whether you have to feel your gut to see whether it's right to go, okay, what I think was working in 2017, 2018 does not work for me anymore. Facing that might be the reality to go, okay, well, that means you got to change something. And then that might be the benefit. Again, obviously the balance of then doing that too early, you know, then you might miss out. I think you're applying the right path, but something tells me you're going to find a lot more pain now than you are in 2017, 2018.
Yeah, for sure. There's no doubt on that. Actually, I don't know. I shouldn't say for sure, because when I look at myself, and then once again, it's hard to be objective, I feel like skill-wise, you know, everything's leveled up except I'm just older now. And so then the question is, am I less physically attractive?
I again go, I think...
Or you reckon being older and having those skills is almost a detriment?
There is, I believe, a real... You always go... It's always an interesting point. You always go to the attractiveness factor. And I think you are dissuading away from the fact that is not as an important factor as some of the others of... I think if you were to inspect and ask society in general, I'm asking, this isn't a female, I'm saying that what you expect of a 26, 27-year-old is very different to what you expect of a 31-year-old.
Yeah.
For certain. Because there's something to do with the 20s or 30s. There's a general expectation. If you talk to someone in their 30s, you go, either something like this, great career, has a house, has had stable relationships, has had pets, knows how to look after themselves, have a well, maintained social life, something to that effect. Any of those scream out to people as like, oh, that's what I expect a quote-unquote successful person in the 30s has.
Yeah.
Someone in 26, 27, you can kind of get away in the construct of, oh, they don't have a house, makes sense. They're kind of just playing around with jobs or like living off, the income that they have. That's fine. There's very, very clear differences. And this is, I think, questions that need to be interrogated with the dating life of the current world. But believe you me, that is what I see from a lot of conversations with a lot of people. Now, there's, of course, changes. We're talking about in Brisbane. There's changes everywhere you go, and that's fine. Maybe the answer might be like, hey, there's not going to be statistically that many people in the Brisbane area that are going to be the right ones now anymore. because of the change. But maybe in Brazil that's the correct thing,
Yeah,
or
you
in
gotta
South
go
America,
elsewhere,
it's right, or in Japan it's the right thing, where maybe the value of being wiser, being older, being more free is more valued than. I just think in Australia we kind of serve the Western culture, and so to that effect there is a view of what success is, which is very different to other places, and people are not going to accept as easily what you are deeming a successful thing for purposes of, people can be annoyed and you'll be like, just purely for the fact that you might find someone who works and they might find it of annoyance that this other person doesn't work and so doesn't value that, where to you it's a valuable thing. It might be, call it a more wiser thing, a more evolved thing, but it's going to be the preference of people like that. I once again, this is my summary of this one, I think you have to ask the question and move away from the attractiveness quality. The attractiveness in the physical sense, I think you're still centered on that quite a bit.
Well, this is the thing, because I feel, because maybe this is like I'm not in touch with what would you call it, the zeitgeist maybe, because looking from myself at myself, that feels to me like the only thing that's changed. And maybe you're right, maybe it is that I need to have changed, but then it's like I wouldn't be in the dating scene if I was 31, had a house, had really established strong social ties, the job that you can put me in, easy ticked off box. I probably would already have the girl by then, so I wouldn't be in.
Maybe, and look, it's not. This
so
might
it could be like you're screwed no matter what sort of deal.
This might sound outlandish. Maybe we do it, but this is, I guess, where I would finally come to this point is that, I would be prepared to say that if we're going to head out tonight with a few friends. If we went out and we met, like, say, 10 different girls, and I approached each one of them with you and I said, hey, like, we're really interested in this question. Do you find my mate attractive? Just attractive. Just like, I think the general consensus, let's say out of 10, we'll say yes, attractive. And I'll be like, and if we could be like, hey, now don't shift your thought because of what we're about to say and whatnot. And then I said to them, like, okay, he's 31, he doesn't have a job, but he's living on the side doing this and this, so he's fine. He runs a podcast. He handstands a lot. He stretches a lot. This is sort of his routine. Do you still find him? This is where he lives. This is sort of the place that he lives in. This is the car he drives. This is the sort of things that he articulates. This is the people he hangs out with. Would you still find him attractive? And if we could be really like honest and people were real and didn't have to shift their mindset, I honestly believe it would shift below the 8 out of 10. It would go maybe 5 out of 10. And I think that's where for me, and I say, so not just for you, I would say for other people broadly, interrogate the variety of aspects where it can come down to. When you're younger, I think attractiveness is a humongous key because it's probably the predominant thing that exists, right? When you're 16 years old, fucking, of course, you're living with, everyone's living at home, you don't have much, fucking attractiveness is up high. It doesn't change if you live in your mum's house or your dad's house or you live in a particular location or whatever. No one gives a shit. You're just attractive. Not the case as you get older. Not the case especially when someone's trying to date upwards, because there's a certain expectation of what attractiveness is. AKA, if you're asking, if a 21-year-old's asking her friend, hey, I'm dating this guy, as much as attractive as they are, when you lay out here's what he does, here's how he lives, these are the people he hangs out with, blah, 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 you better believe that attractiveness, if it goes down, then you know the key thing that's actually shifting that play. Not that, but if it shifts it up, cool. If you ask yourself that question and you can be truly appreciate that, it's like, oh, where is it moving me in these different vectors? If I told people, hey, I handstand, is it moving it down, neutral, or up? I'd say neutral. If you say to people, I don't have a job, it's down. And then it's the reality of, okay, well then how do I
don't frame it like that, just so you know.
Yeah, how do I articulate it so it's not a down, right? How do I articulate it? So, yeah, that was long-winded raging of it, but I think it's an interesting one. It's going to be a really interesting one. I think a frustrating one, but an enlightening, I think, time in your life right now and finding someone.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it just, I think I've talked about this before, but it hits all the worst parts of my personality, like this innate stuff that it brings up stuff in me which is just, it's better left untouched. The overthinking, the over analyzing, trying to figure out what this thing is, very much putting myself in what other people think of me. I don't like doing that in general. it hits all of these like things that just make me focus more attention on it, and probably make me less attractive because I sound like a whiny bitch.
Sure.
And I'm bringing it up all the time. So I can see why you'd also be pissed off with me bringing it up.
Interesting, right, folks? An interesting, right.
But then, what else will we talk about? We'll talk about babies.
We're not going to talk about baby. I'll talk to you about folks when the
we'll
baby...
talk about babies. Babies are fun.
Well, we'll discuss it. We'll discuss it for sure. All right, Immortals, we're going to leave it there for now. It has been a bit of an interrupted session, but it's, once again, just what you get in the world that we live in. Sometimes you get approached. I enjoy that people do their jobs. And so we do our jobs here at the Mere Mortals. We do these podcasts, and what we ask of you, whenever you listen in, is if it's of any value to you, that you send through some value back to us. The main way that we ask of people to do so is through a boost or through Satoshis coming through and streaming. You can do that in newpodcastsapps.com. You can go and find some different ones already there. I've been playing around with Fountain a lot more. I've had some issues. We've had some issues with people sending through big boostergrams as well. Don't be scared. If you're really struggling with it, if you can't do it, you can reach out. We can try and help. If that doesn't work, that's right. I appreciate that you're trying to do it, and that's a big vouch, right?
It's hard for all of us.
It's hard for all of us. It will become easier. There are other platforms, of course, that you can listen to us. You can listen on Spotify, on YouTube. You can share. You can go through the actual website ourselves, mereimmortalspodcast.com. You can go and find a lot of information there. I know Kyrin's going to be putting in some effort to do some changes over the next year or so.
Yep.
So look, find all those places, share it with friends. It's all appreciated. But the big part for us is getting through those boostergrams and those Satoshis being streamed in the new value for value model.
And that message can be as simple as great show, I enjoyed it. It can be
a question.
It can be an answer to my dating woes. It can be whatever it is that you feel like that moment where you have a thought in your head as you're listening to the podcast. Write it out, send it to us.
Correct.
We'd love to hear it.
And we focus predominantly, like we prioritize those messages above anything else. Those are prioritized above anything else. So that's just a key call out as well. All right, Immortalites, I hope you have enjoyed. Hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. One out.
Kyrin out. Rock on.